Hello, good evening. Maybe you can come closer. We'll have a guest speaker who will give a presentation, and I guess she would prefer if you come closer. Okay, I will say just a few words. Thank you again, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the first afternoon. I think it was interesting. I think it was refreshing, and we are looking forward to the discussions tomorrow. Tonight we'll have a presentation for Deputy Director General from WTO, Ms. Valentina Rukovica, originally from Rwanda, with a very interesting CV, working in women issues and other civil society, in other civil society frameworks. So she has really an interesting background, and now working on having been ambassador in Geneva, and now Deputy Director General to WTO. And I would like to ask her to say a few words, to give a presentation. At the same time, I just want to mention the sponsor of, the main sponsor, of course, is Scatter Group, but the sponsor of this dinner is NKBM Bank from Maribor, very successful bank from Maribor, and one of the great sponsors of Forum for many years, and I want to thank them again. With their help this was possible, as is with the help of Slovenian companies, the whole Forum was made possible. But now I want to give the floor to Ms. Valentina Rukovica. Please.
Dear Minister, thank you very much for your kind words. Good evening to everyone. I would like to say, this being the first time I'm taking the floor at this economic forum, I would like to say how much I'm pleased to just be here in Bled. It's such a beautiful place, and my first words will really be words of thanks. Thanks to the organizers. Thanks to the Slovenia authorities. It's simply fantastic. The organization is top class, and of course the beauty of the place add a lot to it. So thank you very much. When I was asked a couple of days ago to make few remarks at this opening reception, then I asked the organizers, of course, what would you like me to focus on? What would you like me to share with all your guests? And well, they say it would be quite good to talk about the future of Africa, or maybe a trade opening. We discussed those two subjects. Or maybe they say, well, a trade opening in a slowing economy. The two subjects were of great interest to me. Then I went through the list of participants and realized that, well, there were a number of participants from the African continent and from different regions. I spotted participants from North of Africa, from West Africa, from Central Africa, from Southern Africa. I even spotted my own ambassador, the ambassador of Rwanda, going through that list of participants. So I said, well, I think to be fair, I'd rather focus on trade opening and leave that to the ambassadors. So on trade opening and the future of trade opening, I would like just to say a few things on maybe three key challenges that we see as challenges that the multilateral trading system will be faced to, not in the near future and in the midterm as well. And those three challenges, there are many more, but I would like to focus on protectionism first, and second on the fragmentation of the global value chains, and third, on preferential trade agreements. Now, starting with protectionism, I don't think it will be exaggerated to say that the economy is really going through storms and that we are living in a stormy environment. Now, in this stormy environment, we saw that global trade increased in 2010. It led the recovery, mainly led by developing economies. And developing economies, even towards the end of 2010, really outpaced their level of trade pre-crisis, I mean. While the developed economies reached that level only in the first quarter of this year. But then since then, what we're seeing, the economy is slowing back again. And I think during the first panel this afternoon, it was quite clear, and we received from many presenters their perspectives, high level of unemployment. We heard about the report of the OECD that was issued yesterday, and that is forecasting a more gloomy picture. Now, in this gloomy picture, the natural reflex of governments and of people, the natural reflex is just to look inward, to protect oneself, to try to close borders, thinking that, well, that will provide some sorts of protection. Now, it's quite clear, and we have learned that from past experience, that that will be a disaster. That will really be a recipe for disaster. But how will then governments be able to resist the pressures, under which they are, the pressures that are clearly driven by high unemployment levels? There is no easy response to that. We can learn from history, but there is no easy response to that, and we are quite aware at the World Trade Organization that that will be a challenge we will increasingly be faced with in the near future, that we are already faced with right now. What we did, we have been monitoring trade restrictive measures that were put in place by government in response actually to the crisis in 2008. And what we saw is that, well, to the surprise of many, protectionism was actually kept under control. But what we have seen in the last 6 months, we're seeing some worrying signals. Additional protectionist measures are being taken, and they're accumulating. The measures that were supposed to be removed, to be temporary, are not being removed. So while the trade, the volume of trade that was affected was only 2%, those are nevertheless some worrying signals. And that's why we think it's very important to continue to monitor protectionism and to keep it at bay. A second challenge I would like just to share with you, and which we are also very much concerned with at the WTO, it's not concerned with a WTO, that won't be the right way of saying it, but which we'll have to factor in future trade agreements, has to do with global value chains. Clearly, we have moved. The reality of trade today is that products are not produced in one single country. Pieces are produced, parts are produced in different countries. Value is added in different countries, and yet products are assembled in a final destination. So in calculating the trade deficit and the trade imbalances, we need clearly to take that into account. That needs to be taken into account in the discussion, in the domestic discussion about trade policies. The notion of origin of products does no longer have a meaning, the meaning it used to have. Where do you establish the origin of a product when it has actually been produced in 30 different countries? How do you calculate the value that has been added in country 1, in country 2, in country 3. And at the end of the day, what are the numbers you are using to say that my trade deficit with Australia is so, or my trade deficit with China is so, or my trade deficit with South Africa is of this number, and therefore I need to tackle this and this policy. So this is what is informing now, and we will be adapting the methodologies of calculating these deficits to the realities of trade today. Of course, that will have far-reaching implications, but I would not like to go further, to move further, to discuss further this point at this stage. A third challenge that will be also an important one has to do with the increase of preferential trade agreements. Tariffs are increasingly becoming barriers of the past, barriers of yesterday. Tariffs are being reduced either unilaterally or through bilateral trade agreements, or again, multilaterally. So tariffs are really no longer big areas of divergences. Of course, there are few exceptions, and notable exceptions, as in agriculture. But increasingly, we are noticing that the barriers, the new barriers to trade, are of a nature of regulation, of a regulatory nature. And what is happening is that you increasingly having different regulations apply in different countries, different standards demanded by different countries, by different markets, with the risk of having a segmentation of regulatory regimes. And that is, and we know, a challenge that we will have to face for the future of the multilateral trading system as well. So what we do of all that, yes, all those challenges, I would like to say that even more pressing challenge and more immediate is what we do with the issues that are on the Doha development agenda. You've all heard about the Doha development agenda. Now, a number of reforms that are necessary and can hardly be considered as irrelevant today are on the menu of that agenda. Let me mention just few. Tariffs in agriculture, subsidies in agriculture. So how can we reform agriculture? And we know that agriculture reforms are much needed in a world where food security becomes an issue for an increasing number of people. But also, how are we going to discipline the subsidies that are being used for fisheries, the subsidies that are at the origin of overfishing? How are we going to address that? All that is as well on that agenda. Are we going to make sure that to try to streamline the crossing of goods at the borders? So all these issues that are highly relevant are on that agenda, but it won't be a secret if I tell you that today the negotiations are at an impasse. The negotiations today are paralyzed. And paralyzed by what? What we talked about this afternoon. I found this afternoon panel, I will have to say, highly interesting. The negotiations are paralyzed by the lack of ability, the incapacity of governments to make tough decisions, decisions that are nevertheless needed if one has to have a secure today and secure tomorrow. Those issues I've just mentioned that are on the menu of the Doha round will not disappear. They will not disappear because they are being ignored. So they will be there. And the only thing that can happen by ignoring them is that they will aggravate with time, but they will certainly not be resolved by themselves and without any political action or decision. So this is to say that, yes, many challenges are lying ahead. But we need to address first thing first. We need to, and we need government leadership. We need clearly government sense of responsibility. It was mentioned times and again this afternoon. And simply because the power of the future actually lies in the power of people, in the opportunities that are being given to people. And those opportunities can't be given to people with economies that are closed. Those opportunities cannot be grasped by people who don't have a minimum living standards. So that is what is at stake. And I would like to stop it here by thanking you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Okay, you heard the power of the future is in the hands of the people, and now please people start and serve yourself food. Thank you.